Hello everyone and welcome back to another lesson video. I know it has been a while. Hopefully everyone has been doing great and keeping up with their classes. This class, the views aren't really where I want them to be on the videos because there are around 50 of you in this virtual class, and the videos are getting at an average of like 4 to like 10 on each video, and I'm sorry, y'all, that's just unacceptable. I'm letting y'all catch up. I'm not doing the um, live classes anymore unless you have questions because I'm barely getting attendance on those. And I'm perfectly fine with it if you do the work and watch the pre-recorded lesson videos. But some of you aren't even doing the work, and a lot of you aren't even watching the lesson videos. And you're going to see that in your progress report grades reflected because grades were due last Friday, and a lot of you are failing because you're not turning in assignments, or you haven't done that 3-week assessment, which is your major grade. Um, the grades aren't that bad for the major assessment, which was a little bit surprising because the views weren't there, right? So I don't know if y'all are just guessing on the test, but if you have any questions, let me know about it. A lot of you did reach out to me saying that you are watching the um, reading videos that I uploaded the book, which I really appreciate. Thank you for doing that. If you're not keeping up with those, then it's going to be really hard for you to do the assignments, right? What else is there? But yeah, I think that's it for my announcements. Just go into the folders I upload on the days that I do upload um, videos, or these lesson videos and reading videos, right? I need y'all to catch up. I'm being flexible with y'all because I know your coursework in your other classes, it's a lot, right? This has been a weird year for school, for virtual, and I'm trying to be as flexible with y'all as possible and work with y'all, and make it easier for you um, to catch up in this class by letting you do it at your own pace, right? If you are failing on your progress report, just know that I did contact home, so your parent or your guardian knows that you are failing and what you need to do to catch up in this class, right? But let's get started with lesson 11. The focusing question is still, what role did Claudette Colvin and others play in the civil rights movement? Last lesson for chapter 6, I believe, we went sort of into Claudette Colvin's emotions after her trial and the emotions and actions of the civil rights leaders regarding Claudette Colvin. Today, we're going to go into the actions of the civil rights leaders and others in the civil rights movement, uh, particularly um, revolving around the bus boycott, okay, or the origins of the bus boycott. And as you can see by the content framing question for lesson 11, what does the deeper exploration of Rosa Parks' story reveal? We're finally going to go into Rosa Parks and what she did and why she became the face of the boycott and one of the most famous civil rights activists or people in American history. Okay. Still, the essential question is still the same. How do people affect social change? Remember, social change is defined as any changes in social institutions, cultural institutions, or how we interact with people as well, right? These changes occur over time. Some examples are the civil rights movement, the LGBTQ movement, the feminist movement, anything like that, right? The goal for lesson 11 is we're going to analyze how a comparison Claudette Colvin and Rosa Parks reveals Philip Huth's purpose in writing Claudette Colvin, Twice Toward Justice. So chapter 7, as you can see, I sort of did something a little bit different, right? I uploaded the video straight to the PowerPoint. I'm still going to upload it in the folder, so you can do that and just watch or hear them reading in the background while you're doing something else. As long as you are watching them, you should be able to pick up pieces of information along the way. These are the 3 important questions for this chapter, chapter 7. Number 1 is, how does Martin Luther King's precise choice of words strengthen the argument for a bus boycott? What made Rosa Parks the right person to be the face of the civil rights movement? And how does understanding why Parks was the face of the civil rights movement help you understand why Claudia Copeland was not? So for chapter 7, one of the biggest things for chapter 7 was how the black community in Montgomery was getting sort of fed up and tired and angry with the treatment that they were getting, and they're reaching their breaking point, essentially. If you kept up with chapter 6, you know that another teenager gets arrested, Mary Louise Smith, and that sort of makes the turning point is basically there, right? 2 months later, Rosa Parks gets arrested, and that's one of the biggest things to come out of this chapter is Rosa Parks gets arrested, right? And they sort of go into Rosa Parks and why she was the right person to be the face of the civil rights movement and the right person to be the face of the bus boycott. So Rosa Parks gets arrested, and how she gets arrested is completely different from Claudia Colvin. The only similarity Rosa Parks and Claudia Colvin have in their story is that they both get arrested for not moving out of their seat on the bus, right? And that's the only similarity they have. After that, everything is different in their stories. Whenever Claudia gets arrested, she gets dragged off, right? She accidentally scratches one of the police officers. She gets harassed by the cops. Whenever they get to the jail, they don't allow her to have a phone call, right? She sort of gets verbally abused and berated by the cops. Then whenever people hear the story about Claudia Colvin, a lot of rumors start flying around, right? That she kicked one of the cops, that she fought the entire time, that she was yelling at people, right? But we know that not to be true because of what Claudia Colvin says happened. And the story of Rosa Parks' arrest is a completely different story than Claudia Colvin's. When Rosa Parks gets arrested, the cops come on board and they're very calm with her. Rosa Parks asks the cops, why do y'all keep pushing us around? Right? Why do you keep pushing us around? And the cops answer by saying, we don't know, but it's the law, and we're just doing our jobs. And how they arrest her is they allow Rosa Parks to stand up by herself and walk off the bus freely. They allow her to grab her belongings. There's no force being used like they use with Claudia Colvin by grabbing her wrist and yanking her out. They don't verbally harass her when they're in the car. And whenever they take her to jail, right, they allow her to have a phone call. She gets released by the other civil rights leaders, E.D. Nixon. And whenever she exits the jail, there's a crowd waiting for her, and they all cheer, right? They're glad that she made a stand. They're glad she's okay, and they're all on her side, right? With Claudette, it was a completely different thing, right? Whenever she gets bailed out by her mom and her pastor, H.H. Johnson, there's no one waiting for her except for her neighbors whenever she gets back home. There's no cheering. She had split opinion about what she did, right? A lot of the people thought she was brave for what she did. Other people thought she was too emotional and feisty, and they sort of believed the police report as well, right? A lot of people thought Claudette Colvin was making life harder for them. But whenever Rosa Parks did what she did, everyone was on her side for the most part, right? And the reason for that is because Rosa Parks was older. She was in her 40s at this time. She had a well-established job as a seamstress, which is sort of like a tailor, someone that makes dresses and clothes. And she had an established family. She was married. She was already established in the community, right? She was the secretary of the Montgomery NAACP. So she was already seen as a figure in the community, right? Claudia Colvin was a 15-year-old teenage girl that was unknown at this time, right? So Rosa Parks was seen as a very calm, level-headed, very stable, consistent person, right? in the face of people yelling at her, she always remained calm. She didn't get angry or anything like that. Claudia Colvin was seen as the complete opposite. She was known as fiery, emotional, temperamental, very angry, right? So those traits that Rosa Parks is seen as, it sort of makes her the right person to be the face of the civil rights movement. Whenever Claudia gets arrested and gets released, a lot of rumors start flying around about Claudia and what happened to her, the type of person she is. A lot of rumors do not fly around or get told whenever Rosa Parks gets arrested because, again, she's established in the community already. People know Rosa Parks. They know what she does, how old she is, what she's done for the community already. So it's very tough to tell rumors about a person like that, right? Whenever someone's already so experienced in life, that's an adult, it's very tough to tell rumors about those type of people. It's a lot easier to tell rumors about a 15-year-old teenage girl who no one really knows the true story of what happened, except for Claudette and the people on that bus. So those are some of the challenges facing Claudette, and those are some of the reasons why Rosa Parks was sort of seen as the right person to be the face of the civil rights movement. She was calm. Everyone knew her story. Everyone knew who she was. Everyone knew exactly what happened on that bus. They knew even if the police started telling rumors about her fighting the police off, no one would believe it, right? It's Rosa Parks. With Claudette, people didn't know what to believe because no one really knew her, right? And what happens after Rosa Parks gets arrested is they start having these meetings at the church that Martin Luther King Jr. is a pastor at, right? And they hold these mass meetings, and they decide to start a bus boycott where they don't ride the buses, right? They tell everyone, don't ride the buses, walk to work if you have to, or just stay home. Stay home. You can afford not to go to work for a day. You can afford not to go buy food for a day, run errands, things like that. Just stay home. And it works. Martin Luther King Jr. goes to a lot of bus stops to check how many people are riding the buses. And for a couple hours, there's only 8 people on those buses, right? Which is a big deal because the Black citizens of Montgomery made up 75% of the total passengers on those buses. So if the Black community decided not to rent the buses, that's going to hurt the busing company and hurt their bank accounts, right? Or take away money from them. And remember, money talks. So Martin Luther King Jr., he holds these mass meetings and he's talking to hundreds and hundreds of people, okay? And he's basically saying, he gives a speech, and I included the speech in this PowerPoint if you want to go back and listen to it, and I'll include it in today's folder as well, which is going to be the 413 folder. And he gives a speech, and it's a beautiful speech. I highly recommend you listen to it, that is saying, we need to come together, we need to fight, what we're doing is right, right? We're just fighting for justice, we deserve our rights, our freedom. And he says it's not only time to use the tools of persuasion, it is now time to use the tools of coercion. I'm going to go into that quote, exactly what that means. But after his speech, they take a vote on whether they want to really continue this bus boycott and make it a consistent thing. And it's a unanimous vote. Everyone in the church votes to say yes because they're angry about Rosa Parks getting arrested. But where was this anger whenever Claudette Colvin gets arrested, right? So it sort of makes you see why Rosa Parks was made to be the right person, how Martin Luther King Jr. is slowly becoming the face of the civil rights movement, their leader, and sort of understanding why Rosa Parks was the face and helping you understand. Understanding Rosa Parks helps you understand why Claudette Colvin was not. She's too young, right? She was too young to be the face. Essentially, she was less established, less well known. You couldn't really tell rumors about Rosa Parks, but you could do the Claudette Colvin. It was easier for the community to unify and stand behind Rosa Parks than it would have been if Claudette Colvin was, right? A lot of people just related to Rosa Parks more. She was more comfortable. She bridged classes, and she was accepted in a lot of different social settings, right? Um, it would have been hard for Claudette Colvin at 15 with all these rumors flying around to be the face of the movement, right? Especially with rumors of her striking a police officer, even though we know that's not true. But going into boycott, a boycott means a refusal to buy or use something as a form of protest, right? Is basically refusing to buy or use a service. So the service they're refusing is the buses, right? So Joanne Robinson, the president of the Women's Political Council, asked people to stop riding buses and participate in the boycott um, to protest Rosa Parks getting arrested, essentially, right? And try to get better seating. And this leads us into the Montgomery bus boycott. And we're going to talk about this in the next lesson and in chapter 8, because chapter 8 has to do with the Montgomery bus boycott and exactly what it was about, the details of it, and what it led to. So some of the key people involved in the Montgomery bus boycott is Joanne Robinson, E.D. Nixon, and Rosa Parks. Those three are very big civil rights activists. We've read about them in the book so far. And what they wanted to achieve through the Montgomery bus boycott is to show the unity of the community by avoiding the buses. They wanted people to know that they're in it together and to express anger at the system of segregation and at the arrest of Rosa Parks. Some of the things that got in the way and sort of scared them a little bit is people thought Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., would be driven out of Montgomery by the white people, and the white community would not give in to the boycott. And whenever we eventually reach chapter 8, you're going to learn that the white community really did not give in to the bus boycott. It was very effective in what they wanted to accomplish, but they needed something else to end segregation in the buses. And we're going to get into that in chapter 8 and in chapter 9. So this is the quote I was talking about in Dr. King's speech, is not only are we using the tools of persuasion, but we got to use the tools of coercion. So persuasion basically means the ability to convince someone to do something. Some of the synonyms is inducement, and coercion means the act of persuading someone through the use of threats or force. Synonyms, compulsion. So what he's basically talking about is before the bus boycott, what they're doing is they're meeting with white leaders of Montgomery, and they're trying to have these peaceful negotiations, but they're not accomplishing anything, right? Dr. King describes them as just very nice meetings, very polite, well-mannered, but nothing is getting done. So he's saying not only do we have to use these tools of persuasion, these negotiation meetings, talking to the white leaders trying to get change, but we finally have to start using the use of the tools of coercion, which is using force, using threats, using the boycott, right? He's finally saying we have to take action. He says, while we continue to talk, and talking is important, we have to take action. And that action is the bus boycott. So the civil rights leaders finally had enough. They're finally acting, right? After Claudette Colvin gets arrested, they do nothing. After Mary Louise Smith gets arrested, they do nothing. But finally, Rosa Parks gets arrested, and they say, hey, it is time. He said, hey, it is finally time to take action and show the city we mean business. So this is a speech. It is like a 14-minute speech, but I shortened it down to like 5 minutes. I highly recommend you watch this because it is a beautiful, beautiful speech. Okay. So how does Martin Luther King's precise choice of words strengthen the argument for a bus boycott? He is sort of known as one of the greatest speakers in American history. There is a reason, right, that we still study his speeches in class to this day, right? There is a reason for that because he is an incredible speaker. He sort of, how do I explain this? He sort of convinced hundreds of people that it's finally time to take action. And it's very hard to get everyone on the same side, right? It's very hard to organize something like that, but he's very good with his words. He's seen as a very respected person in the community, and people want to follow him, right? So again, what made Rosa Parks the right person? her age, her experience, her standing in the community, her job, her family, how well respected she is, how calm she is, all of those things made Rosa Parks the right person. And eventually the person that became the face of the bus boycotts, right? That's essentially it for this lesson. The biggest thing is just understanding Rosa Parks as a person and why she became the face. If you watch the reading video, you'll see Claudette Colvin's side to everything. She sort of agrees that Rosa Parks is the right person, but she's very upset because she took action months ago, right? 9 months before Rosa Parks did, and she got nothing. Remember, she gets thrown away by the civil rights leaders, right? They don't really talk to her anymore. They're sort of done with her ever since she lost her case. So understanding Claudette's side to it as well is very important. And then Martin Luther King's speech is also a very important part of chapter 7. But yeah, that's it for this lesson video. I may upload a chapter quiz, be on the lookout for that, or a discussion. But other than that, um, that is it. If you have any questions, email me or message me on Schoology, and I'll see you here for the next lesson video.